So the recording that we're doing now is for research that Laura is doing at the University of California, Irvine.
Yes.
It's for Stanford University and for Bert Dean at the Torres Museum.
Okay.
And what we want to do with the interviews is keep them in an archive and use them to better understand the Koue Bokkeveld. And eventually we want to have the interviews as part of an exhibition
Okay.
on the people of the Koue Bokkeveld.
That's good.
Is that all right with
Yeah,
you?
that's good.
Okay. So I'll start with asking you your name, your age, and where you live.
Okay, I'm Jacob Coetzee, and I'm 60 years old. I turned 60 last year, October. And I'm staying at Oppiberg here in the Koue Bokkeveld.
And how did you and your family come to be here?
My grandfather, he is Jaffie's grandfather also.
So you and Yafi are cousins?
Not really.
Okay.
My grandma and Jaffie's father are brother and sister. So Jaffie and my father, they are nephews. So Jaffie is supposed to be my uncle.
Oh.
Yeah, and we were both on the same school at the Sierra Secondary School in Sierras, where I finished matric. So we are related to each other. And also, Wimpy is my nephew, because me and Wimpy have the same grandma. My father and Wimpy's mother were brother and sister.
And if you are related to Yafi, is your family also connected to the Galant family?
We are feeling part of the Galant family, because we know a lot of Jaffie's uncles, and we visit all together and sometimes and so on. And I know that Jaffie's fathers, they were 20 or 18 kids. Our grandfather got 18 or 20 kids. I'm not sure whether it's 20 or 18. So there's a lot of Galants there. But I grew up on Kromfontein farm, which is the Tweed farm, where my grandfather worked and lived, and also my father had also worked for the Tweeds. And he worked for the Tweeds for 50 years before he retired. And then he became farm manager or on one of the Tweed farms in Sierras, it's Freeland. And then he worked there for 5 years. And he totally retired on 70. And he was at the age of 70, he retired completely.
And how did you come to know about the uprising in 1825?
It's an old story that my father told us when we were kids, but I wasn't aware of the total facts, because he told us that there was an uprising at Oudenburg, but he didn't mention that the Galant was also involved in that. We didn't know. I didn't know. I got that information I got when I first met Laura, and I received an invitation for a meeting with her. And then I realized, the Galant is also involved. But I was never told about that. I wasn't aware of it.
So you didn't know, when you first heard about the story, you didn't know who the rebels were?
Yeah, no, I didn't know who the rebels were. That's true. But he told the story that it happened on Hodenbeck, and that's why the place name was Hodenbeck. And then he said, during the revolution, there was some of those slaves, they come and told the white farmer, "Hold you back," and then he shoot him. That's what that's what he told me. But he also told me about Koppeswoogte, about the heads of the slaves that were there posted on poles. But as I said, I wasn't aware that my family was involved in that.
And when your father told you the story, why do you think he told you the story, or what did he want you to know by telling you the story?
I think it's just to let me know how the history of the Koue Bokkeveld works. Because I was very interested in the history of the place. And I also take history in school as a subject, till matric. And then everybody thought that maybe I will go and become a teacher and present history at school. But that happened not so.
Did you want to become a teacher?
No. I was teaching at the school for 1 year, just after matric. Then they need a teacher, and then they asked me at Booplas Primary. And then I go there, teach 1 year. And then after 1 year, I realized, no, teaching is not for me. Because all my friends go to become teachers, and I said, no. And therefore, I studied agriculture. I was for 2 years in Stellenbosch at Krommeré Agricultural College. And I studied agriculture. And after I finished my study agriculture, I started working at the Retweets, where my grandfather works, and my father's also working. And then after nearly 2 years, I resigned and started working at Bronner, where Jaffy was staying and working and so on. But I worked there for another 3 years. And then after 3 years, I applied for a post back at Krommeré Agricultural College. I go back to Stellenbosch. And then I was working there for 8 years, lecturing students in practical fruit production. And then with the New South Africa in 1994. They take me, and then I start working at Elsenburg for the Western Cape Agricultural Department. Then I was the extension officer for 2 years. But during that time, I was married for 7 years. My wife was a teacher at Booplas Primary School. Then I was staying in Stellenbosch. And after 7 years, before 7 years, the first skip arrived. And then the second one arrived, and I said, no, you can't grow because they are boys, so I have to come home. And then I applied for a job at Bronner, and then I got the job at Bronner. Then I come back to Bronner. And I worked for Bronner for 5 years.
Did you ever tell your children about what happened at Hodenbeck?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I don't think so, because they are not interested in history. And they choose different career paths. And because it's also studied agriculture, he's in Verliesdorp, The other one is studied IT. So they are not interested in history. And I think the fact that their mom are not from this region. She is coming from Ebenezer at the Olifantsrivier, near Lutzville. And therefore, I cannot recognize that I remember that I told them the story. But nowadays we are talking about, now it's the rebellion and so on.
And can you tell us about your involvement in commemorating the uprising?
It was the first time when we have a meeting with Laura. And then we got the meeting here in the same building. And then afterwards, I think Laura was after the Geland and the Royce and some other, there's another surname, I'm not sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, Thijs, yeah. And then suddenly that thing explodes and then we start, maybe it's the Geland uprising and so on, in 1825. Then I became involved because I think that it's a beautiful story because we have to remember it. And because me and Wimpy had started to find out how our family tree is working. Mm. But every time it's a dead street, it's a dead end. And then I thought, maybe this time we will get some more information to finish that project, because I knew that the Geland family, they got a family group, but because I'm not such a Geland as they are, because I do not have the Geland surname, and therefore I feel maybe I have to join them. Because I'm also part, because my grandma is part of the Gelands.
Okay. And so you'd known already that your grandmother was part, and that's what made you feel that you were also part of that family and part of that community. Yeah. And does that make you feel a connection to the uprising?
Yes, because I feel strong about the uprising and everything that is currently happening. But as the uprising as such here in this region, it was just sleeping. Nobody gave enough evidence to it. And suddenly Laura is from University of California, and I think, why is she so interested in it? In the uprising. And that triggered me, because people not from South Africa, people from abroad, they are interested in it. And here I think we do not have the truth about it. And I think that's what holds us a little bit back, because we do not have the facts. And the historical people, they knew the facts and so on.
So you wanted to learn more about it so that you could understand it better?
Yes, but since Laura's visit, I read a lot of information about it. And every time I think when I speak to Wimpy, he said, it's a lot of facts and so on. But as I said, we weren't aware of the truth, and so on.
And what do you think this story means to the people of the Koue Bokkeveld?
I think it's a great story to tell. And I think for the future generations, because here in the Koue Bokkeveld it's a lot of the Gelands is still staying, living and working here in the Koue Bokkeveld. And I think that they have to remember from where they are coming till now, because no one has their history. If I normally, I can't remember if I asked my grandfather from where he's coming. My grandfather just told me that they are originally from the Sierenberg. But the Sierenberg area is a big area. And there it stops, because I do not know from where in the Sierenberg is coming. Because the story was told that his father coming from the Sierenberg. But his father, on the Coetzee family, he was a white man. And then he married a Nama woman. And they were staying in Hamlet. And that's what I know. I know that he was a white man. I saw him as a white man, and then the Nama woman, because she was black. And if you look at the Coetzee family from that side, you will see some of them are white, some of them are very dark, and so on. But on the Geland family side, I only know that my grandfather, because I was a little boy when I grew up, and I saw him, and he was staying with my aunt, and therefore I know him. But when I first met him, he was a widower.
Widower.
He was a widow.
His wife had died.
Yeah, his wife.
Widower.
His wife had died. Yeah.
Okay. And why do you think that it's important to tell this story?
I think it's important to remember him, for the remembrance of it, and then to heal, and then we take it forward from there on. And then it will be part of our history. Because, as I said, I wasn't aware that the rebellion was there was Geland involved. That was news for me. And then I realized afterwards, why does he become involved in it? I've got no idea. But as soon as I started reading it, I said, okay, that's how things work during that time, and so on.
And what do you hope that people will learn from this story?
I think because there's a lot of Geland in this region, I think that they will remember it. And maybe they can pass on the story to the next generation. Because the next generation doesn't have the facts about it. And it's history. You cannot remove history. The history is there. But the history must be based on, from my side, the history must be based on facts. Because I thought it's just a story of Oldenburg. When I heard it, it's a story of Oldenburg, and it was the slaves against the white man, and so on.
And what do you think the role of museums and of monuments is in terms of raising awareness about an event like this?
Last year, there was an exhibition at the Togreis Museum in Ceres. And then I go there because I heard about those exhibition of the rebellion and so on. And then I go there and I stand there and then I read it. And I was so young. That was a mess. And some people are so wreed. And I thought, is that happened to my family? That geland, guys. But I think the museum played a role to remember those guys, because it happened in this region. So it's an original story of this region, and I think other people doesn't know that the rebellion was here. Starts in the Koue Bokkeveld, and that the geland was also involved in it, and also the Roos and so on. And I think as soon as there's monumental as soon as we can go back, and then people will relate to it, and that's very important. That's why we go back to Koue, because our church were at Koue, and was always told us that there were 3 poles with 3 heads on it and so on.
And could you tell me what you would like people beyond the Koue Bokkeveld to know about this story?
I think those people have to know that Koue Bokkeveld have a history, and the history is connected to the slave rebellion. And I think that's important, because I think there's a lot of people in South Africa that do not know that history, because it wasn't in our school handbooks, for example. The story wasn't told there. I think that the stories normally told us was only those good stories of the white people in South Africa, and they neglect the role that those slaves play here in the Koue Bokkeveld, and that is an important thing, that they have to tell also that story, because it is history, and we cannot change the history of it. But we can tell the story, just to remember, because it is important that you have to know where you are coming from and where you are going, because you are raising kids, so they have to know, oh, my father stayed there, and that's how things, and that's what happened in that time, and so on.
Do either of you have any? Laura?
Jacob, I understand that you and several other people in the community did DNA research.
Yes.
Are you willing to talk about that? What did you find?
My DNA results are still at home, and I wasn't sure, because it says to me that my forefathers and those guys, they're coming from Madagascar. And I was worrying, why do they coming from Madagascar? But I wasn't interested. And I told my wife, no, that my people can't come from Madagascar, because I wasn't aware that the Geland was a slave. I was totally not aware that he was a slave. I think he's coming from the Koue or the sun and so on. But I think I have to go back, and then I have to check on that DNA test of mine. What had happened, and maybe I have to believe it now because I said no, Geland is a slave. Maybe he come from that side. I'm not sure from where he was coming.
Yeah, no one knows.
Yeah, so, but I'll check my DNA results because we have done it.
Yeah, and does anything else in addition to Madagascar stand out to you from what you got back?
No. Madagascar is so far away, and I do not really have the connection and so on. So therefore I just store the results and so on.
Okay. Can I ask about your wife's family?
Okay.
That you said she grew up in Ebenezer?
In Ebenezer, yeah. Do you know that place?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then she ended up as a teacher on Bronnar. Do you know how
at
did
Boerplas.
at Boerplas, sorry.
Boerplas, yeah.
Sorry, misspoke. At Boerplas. How did she make that journey?
I was working at Bronnar, and she got a post at Boerplas Primary. And the previous principal, she was a teacher at this school. And then he became the principal of Boerplas. He asked her to come this side. And then we met each other that side.
Okay.
But her mother is still staying in Ebenezer. Yeah, I think she's now 84. She will turn this year 85 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you have 2 sons.
Yes, I got 2 sons. Yeah.
Additional children?
No.
Just
no.
The 2 sons who brought you home.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add? Anything you think we haven't asked you that we should have?
No.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay. Laura, so you know Ebenezer. Are you also doing research on Ebenezer?